I have the extraordinary honor of being asked to speak to you folks about a topic that probably isn't something you all want to talk about. Is that fair? Silence. Can I just make a deal with you first? So I'm going to do everything in my power to keep you guys from falling asleep after that big meal. I'm going to try and keep you as engaged as I can, but I need some return back. First thing, thank you. The first thing I'm going to ask, as hard as it is to do when you work in an IT business, is take your devices and turn them upside down. Oh, I know that's hard, isn't it? The reason for that is research has proven that if we are as less distracted as we can be, we learn more. I love engagement. So if anything that I say is controversial or you have an opinion, throw up your hand and we'll do our best to listen to you. I will have quick Q&A at the end. But absolutely consider yourselves here to learn, to laugh, to make new friends, to have fun, and to eliminate workplace bullying. Fair enough? Okay, I'm going to start with a quote. This is a quote from a judge, U.S. judge, attorney, and someone who I call a colleague in the field of workplace bullying, Patricia Barnes. And Justice Barnes says that workplace bullying is likely the most preventable and needless expense in corporate finance. What do you think about that? Do you have any idea what workplace bullying is costing the U.S. economy every year? Throw out some numbers. What do you think it might be costing? No, I don't hear. 25% of what? Just give me a figure. 2 billion. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Can I have 3? 310, 320, 340, 40. It is estimated that it costs the U.S. economy $300 billion a year. Does that surprise you? Well, you're going to be surprised about a lot of things we talk about today. Now, let's also ask another question. What percent of U.S. workers, regardless of sector, regardless of role, regardless of industry, what percent of workers is impacted by workplace bullying? Give me a percent. 10, 75, 70, 20. Okay, we'll end it there. 70. 70% of U.S. workers have been impacted. That doesn't mean that they're the target. It could be that their coworker was. It could be that they were working on a team where this was going on in their midst. Now, this is regardless of industry, sector, role. Does that surprise you? Or am I speaking in tongues? Does this resonate for any of you? And I'm aware that you're working for predominantly one organization, so I don't expect anyone to stand up and do anything that would be uncomfortable for you. Not at all interested in making that happen. So I have had the honor of going around the world talking about workplace bullying. And I've discovered by sharing my story, I've heard hundreds of others. And there's a thread that runs through them. And that is that workplace bullying is wreaking havoc with our people, our teams, our programs, our projects, our success. Even 68% of executives, when polled by the Workplace Bullying Institute, yep, there's a Workplace Bullying Institute. That might surprise you. 68% of executives said that they think workplace bullying is a, quote, serious problem. So, ultimately, I think workplace bullying can be just called bad for business. Is that fair? I couldn't agree more. So I wrote a book. And it's called, guess what? Workplace bullying is bad for business. Why did I write a book? I'll give you some context. I was a target of a workplace bully. I was a very senior executive in a multi-billion-dollar organization, and it sucked. That's the bottom line. It sucked so bad that I got taken off of work because I had fainted. And I didn't know that I'd also lost 22 pounds. I don't look good any skinnier than this, but I was. And I had no adrenal gland function. Why? Your adrenal glands produce adrenaline in a flight or fight, life and death situation. I had been under the kind of stress from the bully that my adrenal glands were constantly pushing out adrenaline, but then they just stopped working, and I didn't know. So one day when the bully was on me, my adrenal glands pumped out no adrenaline. Your heart rate reacts to adrenaline, it automatically slows down. I had no heart rate. Took them 5 machines to get a heart rate on me. They thought I was dead at first. They thought I had a heart attack. They thought all kinds of things. Truth is, I was just being bullied. So I'm going to put a slide up that is meant not to shock, but to give you a bit of context. So, that was me 10 years ago. I had stage 4 lymphoma, and that sucked too. But I can tell you with absolute truth, and this is by no means in any way meant to offend anyone who struggles with cancer, who's had cancer, who has a loved one with cancer. But bullying was way worse than that. 4 months in an isolation room, bullying was worse. Why? Well, let's talk about the similarities. Well, bullying and cancer have quite a few similarities. Number one, we've proven it's everywhere, right? So is cancer. Fair enough? Number two, it requires radical intervention. Bullying and cancer. And number three is that it causes terrible impacts to health, to people, to families, to careers, to lives. Fair enough? Now let's talk about the differences. When you're bullied at work, unlike cancer, where you have an entire support network of institutions, of your employers, your friends, your colleagues supporting you, cheerleading. When you're bullied, you are alone. There are no cheerleaders. No one understands what you're going through. No one wants to even talk about it because they're afraid that if they talk to you, that they might become the target. The other awful thing about bullying is that cancer doesn't discriminate. Anyone in this room could have had the misfortune that I had. Bullies, they target, they discriminate, they have an interpersonal destruction campaign against the people that they want to take out. Totally different. And finally, when you've got cancer, you're fighting one thing: cancer. When you're bullied, well, the sad reality is that you're fighting a bully, your workplace respect policies, your HR, your team, your executives, a system, processes. You've got a whole range of things that you're trying to cope with. So, context is that I can honestly say, being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress and being off work for almost 2 years because I couldn't get out of bed was worse than recovering from cancer. Did you think you could get PTSD from bullying? I sure as hell didn't. I thought that was for our courageous men and women who fight in wars, or who are police officers or firefighters or paramedics. But no, it's very common for victims to get diagnosed with PTSD. So we'll get off of that, and we're going to play a video about how prevalent this thing is. So if you're not sure, because of what I said previously, that bullying's a problem and it wreaks havoc in our workplaces, do you feel a little more convinced now? I get silence. Yes?
Can you define workplace bullying?
You are a mind reader. The question is, can you define workplace bullying? That's next. But before we get there, this is a leadership forum. This is a place for us in this room to accelerate our leadership. That requires an ugly reality, which is self-accountability. That requires us to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, well, how are we leading? How are we driving the vision that we have for our teams, our programs, our projects, our organizations? So I'm stealing from the person who keynoted earlier this morning, April Mills. I watched her YouTube video and went, oh my gosh, I need 2 slides. So she gave me 2 slides. So, are you driving people or are you driving change? Because if you're driving people, and April's a great artist, I mean that I couldn't do that. I suck at arts. If you're driving people, you're basically using your authority or someone else's, and you're using things like intimidation, fear, coercion, maybe rewards, but it's a manipulative form of reward to get where you think your team, project, organization should go. That's not going to work. That's bullying, or some form of it. Alternatively, you can be a servant leader. You can say to yourself that the best way for the vision that I have to be accomplished is to share it with the people that have the talent that I need to get the job done, to support them, to communicate with them, to reward them for their initiative, their loyalty, their performance, their intuitiveness, their innovativeness. How does that sound? Does that make sense? So let's end this part of the discussion with one quote that is, if there's one thing that you leave with as a leader today, please leave with this. You cannot expect your team to rise above your own example. How do we think about that? Fair? Sometimes we have to look at the man or woman in the mirror, and we have to acknowledge that we're not perfect, and we have to acknowledge that we can change. That sounds like a Michael Jackson song. I didn't even think about that till just now. I'm talking about the man in the... Yeah. So, we're about to define bullying. What does bullying look like? It looks like this. Are we now clear what bullying looks like? We're laughing. That's good. You should. The challenge here, this is obviously Hollywood, a movie, but it's based on a real person. The chief editor of Vogue, who is known to be, on the one hand, an icon of success, an icon of professional competence, and therefore, on the one hand, revered. On the other hand, Anna Wintour is reviled. the things that she has been called, the people that she has humiliated, the tears that she has created, and the ever-changing loss and bleed of talent from her organization because she is such a bully is gobsmacking. The question that I love to ask you is, if that's all true, then why is she still in her job? Thank you. Profits and results trump everything else in some organizations. That's just reality. I think it's a really short-term version of how you succeed, but in some cases, that's the workplace culture that you are entering into. So, we're going to start with a quick quote. It's really important that we understand that when we are party to something that is not fair, that is unjust, if we do nothing, we're basically taking the side of the lack of justice. So if you are a project manager today, you are certified, I'm here to tell you that we have a code of ethics and a professional code of conduct that we sign annually that says, I will treat people with respect. I will be honorable. I will be fair. I will be truthful. So guess what? If another project manager that you work with is behaving like a bully or in any other way disrespectful, you have a professional obligation to do something. If you want to be considered a profession, and I'm sure we do, then we have to act like it. We have to act like professionals. We have to hold ourselves up to the standards that we think we should hold ourselves up to, that our code says we must. So, what the heck is bullying? If you went to the dictionary, guess what you'd find for workplace bullying? Goose egg, nothing. You find sexting, and the women out here will understand, you find pleather, that's weird leather, plastic leather, but you don't find workplace bullying. So I choose a definition from the Workplace Bullying Institute that's really good. It's a 4-part definition. The first is, bullying is repeated, health-harming mistreatment or verbal abuse. It is threatening, humiliating, and intimidating conduct. It is sabotage that interferes with your work, or it is a combination of all of them. So let's break that down. 4 components, not those ones. It is disrespectful. So that is the number one starting point for behavior where you're not sure if someone's being rude, having a bad day, or just being disrespectful. So if you got disrespectful, you move on to the second one. It's repetitive. This is not a situation where someone comes to work one day and has had a terrible commute and has had their children's milk bottle spilt in their car and their car stinks, and has had to change a diaper on the way out, and gets to work and is frustrated and blows up. But right afterwards acknowledges that their behavior was inappropriate and it needed to be apologized for, and she sincerely or he sincerely does. This is repetitive behavior that is disrespectful. It's not one time. It is also deliberate. The bullies are acting with intent. They know exactly what they're doing and why. Easy example. My minion. The bully in my life thought it was cool, artistic, creative to give his team a minion for Christmas in our Christmas stocking. Now, this is not the cartoon thing that we're all thinking about. Do you know what a minion is? A minion is a slave. A minion is a representation of servitude. He thought it was more about, or this is his excuse, it was more about the movie Despicable Me, and he was making a statement about him being despicable. Note to self, don't believe it for a second. This was incredibly deliberate. So we have repetitive, disrespectful, deliberate, and for the benefit of the bully. Whatever she does, like what you saw in that video, she knows exactly what she's doing. She's using fear and humiliation and intimidation to make that poor woman feel crappy so that she can basically get her to do whatever the hell she wants, including go and catch her dog. Outrageous. But I do this every time, heads up, pass this thing around. I want you to all know what it feels like to hold something like that. I just think it's important to just feel it. So, bullying falls into 3 buckets of behavior. The first is aggressive communication. Now, you saw a lot of this in the video. Can anyone yell at us what you think some examples of aggressive communication might be? You idiot. You dumb idiot. Thank you. All caps. Lovely. Email all caps. And then 7 exclamation points. Usually with you idiot, right? All caps. What else? Shannon, can I get you to come up here, please? I like to use audience members, and usually I'm down with you. But I'm just going to use Shannon. Yeah, come on up. I'm not going to bite, but I may not make you comfortable. That's right. I'm just demonstrating. So bullying usually starts really small. And it usually starts with something like Shannon's presenting.
Look at your watch.
No. Okay? That's aggressive communication. I've effectively humiliated Shannon, right? It starts there. But then it usually starts to get really uncomfortable when we invade people's space. And then we tell them, you know, if I wanted a 4-year-old to do that, I would have gotten my kid. All right? Hey, thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. Thank you. That looks ugly, doesn't it? It's real. Every single thing that I speak about in this talk, I have heard or I have witnessed or other people have come to me. I wrote the book based on stories. I was so amazed by the stories. So aggressive communication, any one of those. The big one now is we've got Gen X and Gen Ys who are really into connectedness. They use social media now as a predominant force for this kind of behavior. Work manipulation. Any idea what that means? Claiming credit. Thank you. Claiming credit where they had nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, project managers are famous for that. Ever had a boss do that to you? Okay, I shouldn't ask those questions in a room full of one. Sorry. Duh. Manipulation of work. It's kind of those things. My boss was absurdly good at excessive micromanagement and changing the game. Sabotaging work. This one happens all the time. They don't keep you in a communication loop, or they don't give you opportunities for promotion or training that they give everyone else. You know? She's really good, I really like her, but you suck, so I'm not going to give you a chance. This is the question that is always asked. Well, hold it. our workplace culture is really high pressure. It's really competitive. It's really high stakes. It's really aggressive. We are change guys and ladies. We are constantly pushing the envelope. We have to keep up. So we argue a lot. We argue a lot. We disagree a lot. Here's the bottom line. We can disagree. It's part of a good workplace culture. It's part of that driving innovation, getting everyone's opinions on the table and saying, bit of that, bit of this. No, don't agree with that. As long as you agree to disagree without being disagreeable, it's fine. Does that make sense? Use that at home. It works with kids. So, bullying is not expressing differences of opinion. It is not offering constructive feedback. Now, you idiot is not constructive feedback, right? That we all agree? Okay, just making sure. Reasonable action relating to management. We manage projects, we manage people, we manage teams, we manage budgets, we manage stakeholders. You had a question at the back, did you? Did you put up your hand? Oh, I'm sorry, so we manage all kinds of people, and we have to do our job managing, right? We have to. So it's okay to be taking normal management actions, especially in project management. We might have to shift resources. We might have to reduce our budget. We might have a time frame and a scope that has altered. That's normal. And definitely, we are responsible for performance management. I would say we're just as responsible for our own performance management as we are for those that we manage. So all of that is okay, provided it doesn't involve the bullying behavior that we just talked about. Fair enough? So any one of those behaviors can cross the line if it gets into the behavior. Now, just look at the top of this. Don't look at the slide. I get so, I'm going to say it, pissed off when an executive says to me, you know, we know that Jane is really hard to work for. I've even heard someone say, she's amazing at whipping a unit into shape. That's just her leadership style. That's just the way she runs. Oh, sorry. Could I have the video played, please?
Contrary to what some would have us believe, bullying is not a leadership style. It's the opposite of leadership. Leaders inspire and build functional teams. They value others, reward competence, and encourage contribution. They set good examples, holding themselves to the same high standards they expect of others. They aim for clarity, behave with integrity and maturity, and take responsibility for their mistakes. They let others work without interfering. They resolve conflict. By contrast, bullies erode and disrupt functional teams. They may use team language, but they're not team players. They devalue others, feel threatened by competent staff, and stifle contribution. They set bad examples and exhibit hypocrisy. They pollute the workplace by projecting their own negative stuff onto others, creating confusion and uncertainty. They lack integrity and maturity. They lie and blame others to disguise their own failings. They focus on petty fault-finding. They generate conflict. And when their bullying is rooted in personality problems, their behavior is unlikely to change.
Does that help? So if you ever hear someone say, yes. The question is, what happened to my bully? I'm going to tell that story at the end. Is that okay? And if I don't, pull the question back in. What motivates bullies? This should come as no surprise. They're insecure. They have huge egos. They are addicted to results and to accolades and to you're just the best. They need to hear that every day. And if they don't, they then take it out on someone around them who they think is responsible for the fact that they didn't get that accolade. They, above all, that's why it's in the middle, they want control. And they will do anything they can to keep it. They'll push out anyone they can that is perceived to be a threat. Now, this is always a slide that people go, really? So, bullying in the workplace, take everything you know about bullying in schoolyards and just drop it in a schoolyard bullying world. Workplace bullying shares some things, but many of the fundamental things it does not share. I'm here to tell you that unlike in the schoolyard where a person is singled out usually because he or she is different, weak, doesn't have friends, new, something that is an easy thing to pick. In workplace bullying, the person that is always targeted is this person. Most likely, the most experienced, most competent, most popular, most ethical, and most team-oriented person in your unit. Does that surprise you? Okay, now, if it did, let's turn that around and go back to the motivation. Oops. So if you went back to the motivation, remember, the bully has a work perception of threat. So logically, you would think that that person would be their go-to person. They love her. Actually, they loathe her because she's a threat. She might take away their limelight. She might take away their promotion. She might actually get credit for her work. So bullies take out the best people in the organization. And I have a cue for anyone who's done HR work. If there is a unit that is bleeding good talent, or a unit that has a lot of sick leave, or a unit that people are quitting more regularly than another unit, note to self, you have a problem. And I'm willing to bet in 99 times out of 10, if you ask yourself what is the problem, they will say, John, I know it's John. John's a jerk. John's awful. Yet it still goes on. Okay. The women get to answer a question, and then the men get to answer a question. In a second. I've got one before. What do you think is the most common bullying type of interaction? Someone who's a boss to someone underneath them, colleagues at the same level, or someone who is bullying up. They call it bullying down, across, up. So, down, across. What's your experience? Down, across. Anyone up? Boy, you guys are smart. Exactly right. Now, men. Only men. When you bully, or you've seen men bullying, do you see a trend towards bullying other men or other women, or not really? Men? Women? Both? Just so that you're not surprised, men don't care. They're equal opportunity assholes. Sorry. Does that surprise you? Thank you. No, it doesn't. Oh, no. Women. Women. What do you see happening when you see a woman bullying? Is a woman bullying other men, other women, or both? Huh. Can I ask a really inappropriate question? Why are you such bitches to each other? 80% of the time, a woman bullies another woman. what's that about? Go home, look in the mirror, and answer that question. Why do you want to treat your girlfriends, your colleagues, so weird to me? News to all of you. If you lived in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, England, you already have anti-work bullying legislation in place. It is against the law. It is against the law because it is determined to be a health hazard for workers. Can I repeat that? It is a health hazard for workers. America's behind, but I have really good news. There is legislation on the way. It is called the Healthy Workplace Bill, and this is its purpose. Only a lawyer would do this, but I can. So, what that basically means is that Oregon has entered the bill into their legislature, as have 29 other states and 2 territories. Massachusetts is in 3rd reading. And I love what America did with this legislation. They gave the target the right to sue the bully and the organization that didn't do a damn thing. So, I'm an attorney. I know what's going on out there. There are class action lawsuits being prepared as we speak against virtually every organization that is known to have a bullying workplace culture or a mess on its hands. So when the very first legislation gets promulgated, legal word, it's going to be game-changing. So, you Intel people, go to your executive and ask this question. Hey, is bullying on our risk register? Because it should be. Because someday soon, there's going to be legislation and it's going to be ugly. All right? I'm aware of my time. So, why you should care? Bullying impacts everyone in every one of those pyramid ranges, starting most obviously with the people who are targets. Well, bullying makes you feel pretty awful, and it has huge physical health consequences, as you heard in that newscast. This is really interesting for any of you who really aren't sure if you need to deal with the bully in your midst. So, among people who have been bullied or who have witnessed it, this is what happens. Surprised? I like the last one. How's that good for your organizations? That's a rhetorical question. Team impacts. No surprise. No one wants to work. Everyone's demotivated. Everyone's team spirit and creativity go down the tubes. Work doesn't get done. Performance doesn't get done. And if you're in the project management world, your projects fail. Your customers walk away. And you get all kinds of talent bleed. If you're in program and projects, all of the things that matter to you most will get offside. Your budget, your scope, your timeline, because people can't do the work that they're supposed to. They're too busy in worry world, stress world. So it will have a huge impact on you. Management. You're going to have cost overruns. HR is going to be going insane because they're dealing with all the people who are on sick leave, taking early retirement, claiming that they've been harassed, stressed, bullied, what have you. Leadership. Your leaders, their reputations become impacted. You as leaders could have a very bad reputation if you do nothing. Your stakeholders aren't going to be very happy either. So bottom line, this is C-suite executive stuff. I'm going to share one piece of information about one organization, and I'm not doing it to single them out. The New York Times last August wrote an article about Amazon. Anyone aware of it? Oh, good. That article, I'm not saying it's true or not. That's not my business. I'm telling you that the impact of that article, which called Amazon a Darwinian survival of the fittest bully workplace culture, do you want to know what the impact was to share value in the week following? Guesses? Guesses? Yeah, it went down, but how much? I wished it was that much. They're a $240 billion share market value. How about $19 billion for no other reason? So if an executive says, I don't have to worry about this, give them that, feed them that piece of information, and maybe they'll think again. And if you were Mr. Volkswagen, okay, I won't bother. All right, has it gone away yet? Why do organizations fail to deal with this? I want to hear from you. Why? Fear. Fear of what? And what else? Fear. Fear of what? Retaliation from the bully. Lawsuits. Yep. What else? The results. Fear of the results that they were getting. They would go down. You've just covered off in two lines the two elephants. Fear, and they support the bullies. All right? We're going to go through this real fast because my time, is coming up. Let's go there. I think that's better. All right, so I'm here to tell you that you can do something about this, all of you. There's all kinds of action plans that you can take that as an organization, as a manager, as an HR person, everything. It's all, and I don't by any means mean to do this, but it's all in the book that is there. I'm not going to have time to go into this, but basically there's all kinds of things that organizations can do, the ones you work for. And there's really good things that you can do as leaders. You can lobby for the policies and the processes and the training and the awareness that everyone should have. You can make sure that you set expectations for your team's behaviors and performance manage that. So when someone does something inappropriate, you're on it. And use best practices. They're out there. There's tons of information. This is the one that's really important. Start with the person in the mirror. What can you do? Well, manage yourself. Manage your own behavior, your own frustration, anger, whatever. Model good behavior. Thank people. Reward them. Have compassion. Listen. Ask for feedback. God, it's so important. We hate feedback. I don't know why. It's actually the best thing that we could ever have. How are we ever going to improve if we don't get feedback? Teach civility. Teach respect. Model it and teach it. Create group norms, like the one I created when I started, phones down, engage. It's group norms, right? Easy. And reward good behavior, not just in money. Thank you is 2 words that goes far, 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 far further than $10. So let's end with a quote. Now, this incredible gentleman said wisely that the time is always right to do what is right. It's time, guys. You think? So, it's on you now. You have information. You have tools. You have awareness. Go forth and eliminate. Thank you very much.